How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Do you have any idea how many people are looking at your data every time you go on a website?
Well, I know you and Jager probably look at it as for your evening entertainment.
It is quite entertaining.
According to today's guest, it could be as many as 650 people.
Well, entities, technically.
Whatever, it's still creepy.
Yeah.
Welcome to What the Hack, a show about hackers, scammers, and the people that go after. I'm Adam Levin.
I'm Beau Friedlander.
And I'm Travis Taylor.
I am excited today because Ian Cohen, my old friend and work compadre, is on the show. I've known Ian for 17 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, it feels like longer, but that sounds right.
Well, that's very true. We started working in 2006 doing content development. In 2009, Ian and I started our journey on credit.com, where he became the CEO. Then after we sold the company in 2015, Ian went off to Experian, where he was general manager and chief product officer for, I guess it was Experian Consumer Services.
Yeah, that's correct.
And now Ian's the CEO of Lokker, which is an online privacy company, right?
And for those listening, Lokker is L-O-K-K-E-R, not L-O-C-K-E-R. And I was wondering about that, Ian. Why did you choose to go with the double K there?
We couldn't afford the domain with the C. It was pretty simple.
Oh, you just, the extra C was too much? Gotcha.
Just too much. We actually, credit.com in those days, that's a great story, actually. The way we got credit.com, which is arguably where it's millions of dollars. But when Adam got it in the mid-90s, he got it for trading a hard drive.
My operating partner at the time came to me and said, I got a great idea. There's this new thing, it's called the internet. I said, okay. This was like in 1993. And he said that I can get us the domain for credit.com by swapping it for a hard drive. And so that's how it happened.
Hard drives were very expensive in the early 90s.
Well, that's true. But compared to what domains are worth, it was rounding error.
So on to Lokker and the missing C that was too expensive. What does Lokker do, Ian?
Lokker protects companies and their customers' online privacy. That's what we do. And we can get into how we do it and why we do it.
Well, I was going to say, my impression is that you're doing the impossible, because I feel like there's no way to protect my privacy these days. Is there one?
As an individual, it's pretty damn hard. As a company, you can.
Wow.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it with Lokker, and I'm sure we won't be the last company to invent this.
One thing I just usually like to ask, just to kind of like introduce people into the topic, is why is privacy important? And the second question is, how is privacy for a company important versus for a private individual?
Okay, I'm going to start with the company because it's a very simple answer. They're getting sued like crazy. That's why it's one reason why it's important for a company. But even beyond that, most companies want to do well by their customers. And a lot of what they're getting in trouble for is unintentional.
What are they getting sued for?
Well, there are now 11 state laws, omnibus state laws, and each one's different. So let's take the European Union in GDPR, the General Data Privacy Rules. And you've got a single standard that we've handed out $4.5 billion in fines. The U.S. doesn't have an equivalent. The U.S. doesn't have a national privacy law. Instead, the states have taken up the mantle. So many of the lawsuits out there right now are actually private class action attorneys bringing lawsuits against healthcare companies, hospitals in particular, well-known hospitals.
We begin tonight with a story that we followed very closely since last month. A data mishap involving WakeMed inadvertently shared confidential patient information with Meta, that's Facebook's parent company.
Now lawyers have filed a lawsuit saying this impacts hundreds of thousands of people.
This is the 33-page lawsuit filed against WakeMed earlier this week. It alleges WakeMed violated its duty of confidentiality to patients and failed to...
On top of that, so you also got a bunch of old laws that are being dredged up. For example, there's a bunch of lawsuits, probably over 80 in the last 6 months, based on what's called the Video Privacy Protection Act, the VPPA.
I don't even know what it is. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. When Robert Bork in 1986, I think it was 1986, when he was going through his confirmation hearing, and we now know it's a verb to bork something, it's to break something, right?
The Robert Bork nomination ended today. The Senate voted by an overwhelming 58-42 margin to reject the controversial appointment.
There are members of this. So Robert Bork was going through the Supreme Court confirmation hearing, and somebody got a hold of his Blockbuster video rental history. And out of that, people were so offended by that they passed a law called the Video Privacy Protection Act.
This hearing will come to order. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to the third hearing of the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Privacy, Technology, and the Law.
Which is meant to protect people from getting their video history subpoenaed.
But today's hearing will focus on the Video Privacy Protection Act, a powerful privacy law that was written and passed by Chairman Leahy and Ranking Member Grassley of the full Judiciary Committee. I want to use this hearing to make sure that everyone knows.
Now it's being used for almost any site that has video players on it, which is every site in the country pretty much. It grabs a piece of private information from that video player, sends it to one of the social media companies, bam. According to the Video Privacy Protection Act, the company has violated that act. So what we're really looking at is, I think that companies are now having to take up the burden of saying, look, what are all these laws really saying? They're saying you've got to provide a base level of safety and privacy on your website, regardless of what consent you have. So all these talks about, do you consent? Do you accept all cookies? Do you reject all cookies? It doesn't matter. You can accept or reject all cookies, but you still have to follow the law.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Can I play an Apple ad for you? Because I think it kind of cuts to the heart of it.
The man with the troublesome hemorrhoid enters the room.
Excuse me.
That wasn't me, said Hillary, who's only taken 347 steps today. 348, 349, 350.
I cycled here.
On an e-bike. Speaking of cycles, Mary's period is due to start in 3 days.
It is?
And her friend hasn't washed his hands since Monday.
So this is an ad that Apple put out. It's called The Waiting Room. I think it's a very good story, and I think it covers about 100 different healthcare companies right now.
How do you know so much about us?
I don't like it. It's your health data. You've been sharing it without realizing it. That's how I know about Kevin's rash. And your halitosis wakes up to pee. bunions, lice, and ringworm. Who's next?
That's a great ad for Apple, and Apple using a tool on an Apple phone to help consumers. But for the companies out there, not everybody has an iPhone that's private relay enabled and 100 other things. So the problem that's happened is if I go onto a site and search for any number of ailments, I could search for a brain tumor or something else. I don't want to be retargeted for that ad on the next website I go to. So those are the kinds of stories that are happening, where people are actually going to a hospital. But a long, long time ago, if you remember in 2010, or maybe it was earlier, there was a reporter that tracked all the anonymized, in air quotes, AOL data, and was able to take all these anonymous searches and re-identify someone and actually showed up at their door and said, we know you, we know your kid, you're a horticulturist, your shopping habits are X, Y, and Z. So that was at this point 13 years ago.
Ian, why is retargeting an issue? I mean, isn't this the way companies normally do business, or?
It is. It is normal. The issue is the core architecture of how websites are built. And this is why really good companies that serve their customers well, like hospitals, or intend to serve their customers well, are getting in trouble. So the problem is we don't build our sites with our own software anymore. We rent the software. It's called cloud software, right? So some of this cloud software is really good functionality. There's a whole list of these third parties that we all use to build our websites. Each one of those third parties also uses third parties to build their websites. And each one of those third parties uses other third parties. So the problem is on a single hospital page, we're finding 400 or 500 different trackers on that page.
Wow.
That's the problem.
What's the outcome here?
It sounds like a privacy nightmare. It sounds like we are just getting scattershot all over the place.
We are. It's a privacy nightmare. So here's the problem. The safest thing to do is just remove all the third parties from your website. But then you won't have a functioning website. And you probably won't make any money. So there's a real business issue here where the company needs to be able to do business and retarget people when they wish to be retargeted.
It's a village.
I kid you not. I've shown you guys, it's a shit show. And the bigger problem on top of that is the company can't see it. So again, I'm a company. I decide to use form software on my site, and I decide to put a video player on my site. I decide, and this is the most common one, to add a little line of code that adds social media pixels to the bottom of my site because I'm a good purveyor of web presence and I want my users to have a community. Great. But that one third party adds 48 other scripts, and each one of those scripts adds other scripts. So the problem that the companies have, or the enterprises, we're talking about hospitals and financial services companies, the problem is they can't even see a lot of what's going on. Here's the bottom line. Cloud software, which is everything we're using, and that's not changing. We're all going to keep using cloud software. It doesn't get sent from your website, my website, to your computer. That's not how it works. It goes from wherever the cloud software is served directly into your browser.
So what does Lokker do, though? How does Lokker solve this problem? And don't confuse me because I'm easily confused.
So what Lokker does is we give a website or a company that might have 100 different websites. So we basically scan the website. We get all of the digital objects and we figure out what's bad. Like our whole job is to look at everything that I just told you in an ecosystem where there's hundreds of trackers, and we figure out what's bad, meaning what's not supposed to be happening. We make sure you can run it the way you want to run it, not a bunch of third parties just piggybacking or hitchhiking along on your site.
We're talking a lot about how companies end up losing control of their data and the like. What happens with that data and how is that harmful? In other words, if I have tendinitis and one of these trackers finds out about that, what are the consequences to me just as a guy just sitting in front of his computer, right?
Okay, so let's start with 36% of breaches are from phishing. Where do you think the phishing data comes from?
Oh, from breaches, from compromises.
Oh, you don't even need to have a breach. All I need to do is go to a data broker and just buy data on it. Like,
oh, isn't that sad, everybody? Let's think about that. It's a legitimate business. This is what Tony Soprano was saying all these years. He's a legitimate businessman.
that's a perfect analogy, in my opinion. Like, some of the biggest ones are regulated industries, most are not. Let's just take this at face value. Like, if I'm trying to retarget you, I want to know everything about you. And if that's for sale for a retargeter, it's not like you go in and get, special credentials that you're the most upright and upstanding citizen when you go to get that data. So if I want to target you or a phishing attack or a ransomware attack or anything else, it's really, really easy for me to do it.
So you show up in your bowling shirt and you go, I'm a legitimate businessman. I want to buy that data set, and bada bing, bada bang, bada boom, you're in.
Technology is so far ahead of the law right now. And, we hear all the time that if you're not buying a product, you're the product. It's true. It's true. So that's the problem. That's one of the downstream problems. I think there are more serious ones in society, like the reason GDPR was passed in Europe. Why does Europe care more about privacy than the US? Have you ever heard the I have nothing to hide argument? And you'll understand why that's an absurd argument, that if I cherry picked over your emails or anything else, I could spin up any story I wanted about you.
Right.
So I have nothing to hide was particularly problematic in Nazi Germany. I don't care if I'm being tracked. They can track me all I want because I've got nothing to hide. Well, what about your 16-year-old's faux pas? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about the fact that your loved one has cancer? What about the fact that they know where you are, your location device? What if you're in a part of the world where the regime is authoritarian? In Nazi Germany, if you were a gypsy, a Jew, or anything but an Aryan, you had a lot to hide.
What if? And is that where the GDPR started from? Is that the premise they were starting from?
Yeah, definitely. So Europe is starting from the premise of privacy matters for a whole different set of reasons. Not just with the Holocaust, but the fact that Europe was completely taken over by Nazi Germany, and it's like one of the worst authoritarian regimes ever. And every single bit of free-flowing information, from academics to things in books to things in our ledgers, got taken over by authoritarian regime. There's a sensitivity that leaves with your generation and your generation's kin. So they're starting from a perspective, we've seen this movie. We have seen this movie before, guys. And trust me, I have nothing to hide is the stupidest argument you could make. In fact, I could go to somebody, no matter what they believe here, right wing, left wing, and say, okay, well, the person you think could persecute you someday, do you want them to have everything you ever did on record? Probably not. But, look, the bottom line is, like, I think we're just crossing into a realm where this has become this hugely popular political issue. Thank God. Because this is something I've wanted to see happen for a long time. And frankly, consumers, when I just explain how cloud software works and the client side and all the stuff that really we shouldn't even get into on the show, how's a consumer? No joke. How is a consumer supposed to show up at a site that says, do you accept or reject all trackers? And there's 650 of them. And I'm not making that number up. And it's not like the site's being very transparent by showing all their trackers. But how are you supposed to read it? Somebody estimated it would take 72 working days for a person to read every privacy policy they see when they're online. The average person. I'm not talking about your power user of Instagram. 72 working days. So let's say you could do it. Let's just imagine for a second that was appropriate. We say, okay, I think everybody should have to spend 72 days reading a privacy policy. Okay, so they do that. Do you think they're really going to be able to understand or control what's happening behind the scenes? So in a lot of ways, I really have a bone to pick with this whole way of doing privacy, because what you're really doing is you're giving consent to a company you've never heard of, you don't understand, and you certainly can't control. So why is that appropriate. I worked in financial services. We had to disclose things 6 ways to Sunday, or we got in a ton of trouble. We're headed to the same place with privacy.
Is this something that can be legislated or regulated away, or can the private sector actually govern itself?
It is all of the above. Here's the deal. The public sector is going to say what must be done. The private sector will get it done. Okay. I don't think it's going to be a clean process, but they'll have to. You've now got billions of dollars of lawsuits. Social media has become the most popular. It's become the new big tobacco, basically. So if you're a governor or a state AG, you have a lot of pressure on you to protect people's kids. And that's kind of where a lot of these regulations are starting to come from. So the point being, once you got protect kids and you see what's happening on social media, which is pretty horrible, you start getting all these proposals like, let's age gate sites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so what does that mean? I'm now supposed to give you all my passport information to prove I'm an adult before I go to the site? That's not going to work.
Yeah. And where are you going to store that?
If we look at it that way, the private sector will take care of it after the public sector does something. I'm not sure the public sector is going to be happy. I don't think the public's going to be happy because we've spent years with people saying, don't worry, it'll work itself out in the process. It never seems to work itself out. And I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I went to Washington, D.C., and I met with the majority at the time. And I said to them, are we going to see a privacy law today or in the next year or two? And the response was, we might see laws involving security. We doubt we're going to see laws involving privacy. That may be changing because they said nobody down here can agree on what privacy is.
I hate jumping on a popular bandwagon, but the government is not going. They're going to say what must be done. It's up to the private sector to make the technology work because it just works way too fast. Things change way too fast. Here's the problem with what you're talking about. For years now, we've left it up to states or sectors. So HIPAA is a sector-based enforcement problem, state preemption rights. So now you've got 11 states that work like mad to make their standard the standard. California being front and center in that.
Congress does have the power to pass legislation that preempts state law. Oftentimes, senators and congressmen are unwilling to do it because it doesn't play so well with the state government or the voters back home.
But most people that stand up and pass laws do it, because their constituents want it and they want to earn votes. So now think about America and the federalists, it's the way federalism works. So what if the feds come out tomorrow and go, no, guys, I got it. We finally decided we're going to pass this bill. They have to now convince every state legislature, every state AG on both sides of the aisle in every state or the controlling party. So they're not going to, these states aren't just going to roll over and go, okay, now feds, you can preempt us now. That's just not going to work.
Well, but what about another approach to it? Now, we know we don't have a national breach notification law because of the same problem you're talking about, which is that many states believe that they have a much tougher law than would come out of the sausage factory in the federal government. But what if the federal government passed a law that was not a ceiling, that was not preemptive, but it was a floor, saying at least these standards have to be met?
That's probably what will have to happen. So to set a floor, at that point, though, for a company, let's just take this back to how do you actually protect consumers' privacy? The company needs to do it. So now the company has to figure out how to comply with 25, 36 state laws plus a federal law. And I'm just getting to reality here. And COPPA, the Child Online Privacy and Protection Act, and HISA, the Kids Internet Security Act, there's enough stick now that people are saying, well, crap, I don't want to collect a bunch of, identifications from a bunch of adults, nor are the adults going to give it to me. But if I have to serve content that's inappropriate to anybody under 16, I'm going to get, strung up and drawn and quartered. So at the end of the day, what you've got to do is move upstream of the toughest law of the market you want to do business in and just say, I'm going to take control of my data. And the whole paradigm's flipped around to a very, very simple statement. It's just gone from reactive to proactive. That's where we're headed. Full stop.
One thing I'm wondering about here is that a lot of the examples you're using involve websites rather than apps. Is that a completely different ecosystem? Does the same legislation apply to both equally? Or
Yeah, no, it applies equally to all digital assets. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's easy to pick on websites because that's where the biggest problem exists. So look, let me just bring up one other somewhat scary thought, but that's absolutely true. If you've got 500 trackers on a site, do you really think it's just retargeters and data brokers that are using that method of getting our data? It's really good spycraft. I think our sensitivity to particularly having a foreign country grabbing a bunch of kids' data is getting pretty low. And I'm not trying to just scare everybody to death or anything like that, but this is just out of control. And I think most of the companies we speak with realize as soon as they're able to see this plainly without a long list of code, but actually just plainly see what's going on and have a way to control it, they want to do right by their customers. And they certainly don't want to get sued.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtual Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your virtual pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
It's back to school season and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask second grade teacher Mr. Torres.
Put me and just one Clorox wipe on a team, we can take on crayon smudges, sticky fingerprints on every surface, sneezes on the door handle, juice box explosion by the sink, snack crumbs, and don't even get me started on the bathroom passes.
Clorox disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe.
Think about it. Bathroom passes.
Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Ian, so if I'm a business and I come to you and say, okay, I understand that I've got a problem on my website. I don't even know how big a problem it is, but I know there is a problem. And you look at it and you say, okay, here's your problem. What do I do next?
The first plan is just visibility and transparency. Here's what's actually going on. Hey, do you know what's on your website? Yeah, of course I do. And then I would probably pull up an iPad, open the page and go, does it look like this? And show them 500 red dots on their site. And they would go, well, no, that's certainly not my website. The first thing I would do is say, scan your damn website. So the problem with this ecosystem is it's changing every 5 minutes. It's very dynamic. And the technology out there scans it once a quarter, once a year. I would say a few things. First of all, scan your website at least once a day, if not in real time. Number two, I really mean this. If somebody wants to put a third party anything on your website, have them stake their job on it.
Wow.
Like, come on. I mean, because we are seeing just a litter of stuff on websites. So make sure that you understand what's on your site, meaning that you got to scan it every day and you've got to have real-time control over what's on your site. But I would just say, look, do a simple audit. Here's everything on your site. And there are other tools that can do that too. And go through it all and go, well, how the hell did that happen? Because you're probably not going to be happy with what you see.
What is an actionable piece of advice that you can provide to me?
Oh, go stick your head in the sand and never get on the internet again. Or look, there's some basic things you can do, but it's so if you have Apple, turn on Private Relay. That was the one in that commercial. What Private Relay does, it hides your IP address, which hides a lot of your location tracking. And I don't know about you, I particularly don't like people knowing exactly where I am, and I don't like people selling the data that know exactly where I am for obvious reasons. Use private browsers, and there's a few out there. Okay, Safari is better than Chrome, but they're all kind of bad. But there are tools you can download. DuckDuckGo is a decent search engine. Do I use it instead of Google or Bing or whatever else you're using? And then there's all the stuff you guys talk about, like don't trust anybody. You heard the term zero trust. Privacy sets a floor of what we're allowing as a society. We're saying we're inadvertently sharing data in a breach. We're also inadvertently sharing data right now on websites. But for you, use a private browser, use a VPN, don't click on links, all the stuff you guys know. That's what you can do.
When you're online, do you behave as though you're in a glass bubble and you're completely naked, or what do you do?
100%. I've got so many different tools. There's a bunch of tools that I use. I use so many tools on my website that nothing works on my browser, but I'm okay with that. You just got to be really selective. Like when you buy your kid their first phone or their first computer and they destroy it by going and downloading every app in the world.
Yep.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
Hey, just remember, wherever you go, you got the paparazzi sitting behind you. Just think that way. My best advice is whatever you're doing online, there's a group of paparazzi hanging over your shoulder, seeing everything you're looking at, everything you're browsing. Private browsing doesn't really work, okay? And just remember, you've got that group watching you all the time. You behave accordingly. The other thing you can do is go to companies that care about privacy.
Yep.
Speak with your wallet. If you don't like the fact that you're getting retargeted after you go to a company, don't go to that company again.
One last question. If Beau has always been concerned that he can have a conversation about something with someone in his room, and all of a sudden, these ads suddenly appear.
And I'm convinced, Ian, that it's not just because I've Googled or done something like that.
Yeah. So I can't say definitively your voice activated devices aren't tracking you. I can tell you how it happens a lot of times though. So Facebook knows the proximity when you're close to somebody else with Facebook, for example. Let me just make this really concrete. If you are talking to a guy about guitars who has a Facebook account about guitars and you start getting retargeted for guitars, that's probably why. Right. So like one of the things these companies are getting sued for is that it's not just that data was sent with a unique ID to a social media company. It's that the social media company has ways to re-identify you. So long story short, if you walk in a room and you're talking to a guy about guitars and you both have Facebook on your phones, you're probably going to get retargeted for guitars. And that's a common way that happens.
Same goes for Instagram, same goes for Twitter, same goes for other social media?
Correct.
Gotcha. Well, that is definitely what's happening to me then. Thank you, Ian.
You're welcome.
Mystery solved. I am thoroughly nauseated, and I'm going to burn all of my devices when we say goodbye.
You can give them to me. I know how to use them.
Ian would love you to give it to him because then he can get into your devices and learn everything about you. So, hey.
I think it's a good answer, Ian. He'll just be like, well, we'll just refurbish that computer and go along our merry way.
I'm a good citizen, so. Guys, great seeing you.
Awesome to have you, buddy.
Thank you.
Till we meet again.
Bye.
Okay, it's time for the tinfoil swan.
Our paranoid takeaway to keep you safe on and offline.
So sticking with the theme of privacy, we have talked a lot about how to protect your privacy. And we've also, I'm sure you've heard us say it's futile. There's no way you can actually do it well. Okay, let's pretend there is. Travis, how about some advice?
Sure. Well, we've talked before about how your data can't really be anonymized, but one of the biggest holes in your privacy is your credit or your debit card, especially with what you pay for online.
Okay, now by anonymized, Adam wrote a book called Swiped. I helped him write it. And there's a whole section in there featuring Yves de Montjoy, who was, I think, the first person to prove that just correlating a big data set from credit cards and with Instagram posts, you could re-identify a lot of stuff.
So a study came out a few years ago, and it did show that you could identify people with 90% accuracy using anonymized metadata from just 4 payment card transactions.
You know, that was before the AI boom. It can be done very easily. 90% figure higher, you know. So what should people do, Travis?
There are options where you can get virtual credit cards that mask your actual credit or debit card data. And so the features and protections can vary based on the service you get, but what it means is that you're not having to use the same card number each time you pay for something.
Several major banks offer this.
So why would someone use them? What's the benefit?
Well, again, it depends on the provider, but a lot of them create an alias credit card number for every business you're paying online. So rather than having one credit card number or the last 4 digits being visible to help a bunch of these services track you online, you have a separate one for each.
And many of them let you put limits on each virtual card. So if someone tries billing you for more than you agree to pay, it'll be blocked.
Well, if someone tries to bill me more than what I agreed to pay for, they're going to have a bigger problem than that. Ooh. Buddy.
I do bill you.
You don't. I bill you. But if your payment data gets compromised from one site, it's just the virtual payment info that gets charged. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's only billing to one card. One card number. That's just an alias for the real one.
Okay, so what's the, you know, you're the man with the big butt. What's the butt here?
We call it a gadunk, thank you. Well, like with everything, especially online, there's going to be a drawback. You are still putting your data out there, so even if you're breaking up the mosaic of your personal data across multiple sites, you're sending it through a centralized service, and it means that that centralized service is still getting your data.
It's a lot like Apple billing itself as a privacy champion for not sharing your data. They may not be sharing it with third parties, but they still have data on you.
Yeah, and they're 100% using it, please. So check the privacy policy or online reviews. And Apple, if you think you're not and you want to say you're not, we welcome you to send a representative on the show to have a debate with Adam.
I'm ready. Bring it on.
So check the privacy policy and make sure it's something you're comfortable with.
And what information they need up front. One of the more popular virtual card services requires your social security number and your checking account to use it. That comes with its own set of risks.
It gets worse and worse. This is like, not only do you have a woodchuck, but it just ate your car. Any transaction online can eventually get traced, especially by law enforcement, but it sounds like this is a good stopgap against the free-for-all with your data that Ian was describing.
And it gives you more control over your payment information and who's seeing it.
And that's our tinfoil swan.
Woodchuck eating your car? Really?
It just came out. I'm sorry. I don't know.
That is an unsettling mental image. What the Hack with Adam Levin is a production of Loud Tree Media. You can find us online at adamlevin.com and on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Adam K. Levin.
Behind every empire are the people history tried to forget. Lost Roman Heroes tells the stories of the remarkable characters who shaped Rome from its mythical beginnings to its final fall.
Each episode blends armchair storytelling, sharp historical insight, and a bit of humor to bring these lost figures to life. From generals to scientists, from rebels to empresses, from priests to politicians, these lost Roman heroes have one thing in common.
They stood up for civilization when the bad guys threatened, and in doing so, they changed the course of human history. If you're into history that's vivid, surprising, and deeply human, this show's for you.
Behind every great meal is a person with a story to tell. Hear them on Culinary Characters Unlocked, the podcast that reveals the lives behind the food. Hosted by me, David Page, Emmy Award-winning journalist and creator of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, as I talk with everyone from culinary legends to mom-and-pop standouts about the creativity, grit, and passion that shape the food we love. Follow Culinary Characters Unlocked on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.